Welcome to another episode of Breakaway from the Rat Race. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Scott Meyers. Scott is known as the nation's leading expert in self-storage facilities and self-storage investment. After becoming penniless, investing in single-family rentals and apartment rentals, he began investing in self-storage, and he saw the light, as he says, and he quickly sold his single-family rentals and apartment buildings to start creating this empire of self-storage facilities nationwide. His company focuses on syndicating self-storage deals and helping others also start their own self-storage business and enjoy a lifestyle free of tenants and toilets and trash. Scott, welcome to the show.
Eric, thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
My pleasure. So yeah, as I was saying, like a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with a couple of other people that were interested in self-storage facilities, and I was interested as well. I think it's So tell me more about this, about kind of like how you got started in self-storage facilities, and then kind of like the difference also between the single family rentals, apartment buildings, and the self-storage facilities.
Sure. So I got started in real estate like so many other folks did, and that is by getting into a single family house. So I bought a single family house. We rehabbed it, refinanced it, rented it out. So using the Burr method before it was called the Burr method. Yeah. We took those proceeds and then we bought two more houses also with assumable mortgages. Now this is dating me back to 1993. But we continued to grow our portfolio of single family houses, but didn't really have the cash flow and the freedom. As we mentioned, we had a lot of hassles with tenants and toilets and trash. And we love the real estate game for all the reasons that people love real estate. And that is because you can borrow money to buy it. You can depreciate it. It appreciates in value if you do things correctly. And your tenants pay the basis down for you while you generate an income. If it just weren't for the tenants, it's a necessary evil in our business. So I looked at across the real estate landscape and thought, well, what can I invest in that doesn't have tenants and toilets and trash, and really left me with parking lots and self-storage. And so I looked into parking lots, and there's really not a way to create value in parking lots. Moderate rent increases, but you can't really create that value of decreasing expenses while increasing the income streams or value of a parking lot, like you could with a self-storage facility where there's multiple income streams and multiple tenants in ways that you can raise the rates and the value. So I began looking into self-storage, and yes, absolutely saw the light because of the differences in self-storage and the fact that it is not habitational real estate, which means that we do not have the instance where the government can step in and cause a moratorium on evictions like they're doing right now. People, if they do not pay, we have to go through a lengthy eviction process to move them out. And it's not easy to do these days. In the meantime, they can do lots of damage and owe us a whole lot of money. And at the end of the day, we go to court and we get a little yellow or pink piece of paper. And if they pay us, great. If they don't pay us, there's not a whole lot of recourse in that event. Whereas with self-storage, the biggest difference is that we are not governed by eviction laws. So we are governed by lien laws. And with the lien laws in self-storage, if somebody doesn't pay, you lock them out. And then after 90 days, you sell their stuff off and you get your money back. So, and then when they move out, whether they do it on their own or if we, in the very rare instance, we don't hold that many auctions because they have that threat of that happening out there. But either way, when I get the unit back, we don't have the very expensive turnaround and rehab of an apartment or a house by way of cleaning or replacing the carpet or painting or drywall or appliances. None of that is involved in self-storage. We just got a metal box on a concrete slab. So we take a broom or a blower and we blow it out and we move in the next person waiting in line. So those two alone, both the tenancy exchange and our transition versus as well as the fact that if somebody doesn't pay, we have recourse in getting our money back. Whereas with habitational real estate, we really don't. And it's very expensive when an apartment or a unit turns. That is when I saw the light and decided to sell off all our houses and our apartments. And then we went to just full bore 100% into self-storage.
Yeah, and I think the other advantage as well is that it opens up more markets because it's lien laws that apply. You don't have to worry about tenant laws and landlord tenant laws, because one of our main criteria for investing in single family rentals or apartment rentals is whether the state is landlord friendly.
Correct.
So right there, just having this first criteria,
Mhm.
it eliminates a whole bunch of states that, that would be appealing otherwise.
Right.
But
Mhm.
because they don't have the right tenant laws, then we said,
Mhm.
well, we're just going to stay away from it. I don't want to spend, like in California, for example. I mean,
Right.
we don't
Mhm.
invest. I live here, but
Mhm.
I don't invest here because of the tenant laws and because of,
Mhm.
but it's also the economics also doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So
Red state, blue state doesn't matter to us. We still
yeah.
get paid.
Yeah, exactly. So that's perfect. So I think so. You also mentioned there's multiple ways to kind of increase value of a
Mhm.
self-storage facility. So tell us about some of these things that you're doing
Mhm.
to increase the values, because from the outside, I mean, you look at it, say, okay, well, it's a storage facility. What can you do? You
Mhm.
can paint, make them look
Right.
better, put a better
Mhm.
sign, but what else can you do to add
Mhm.
values to your tenant?
Mhm. Well, going into it, like all other forms of real estate, and I guess I'll compare to apartments or multi-unit real estate, like an apartment complex or multifamily. We go in and we do our underwriting, and we find out, first of all, can we raise rates? We have many of these mom and pop owners that haven't raised rates in a number of years because they wanted to stay full or they just didn't pay attention to the market. So that's an easy one in a
Yeah.
way to be able to create value. But then we have software which has dynamic pricing in it, which is just like the airlines use. And the more full we get as our occupancy increases, then the higher the rate goes. And we don't have to make those adjustments. Manager doesn't have to. We as owners don't have to. It is just automatically built in. Late fees are one of those areas in which many of the mom and pop owners, they would charge a deposit, and they would collect a deposit from folks, but then have to give it back when they move out. Well, there's really not a deposit necessary in self-storage because I just mentioned the lien laws
Yeah.
that negates that. So we change those over to a non-refundable administration fee of $19, $25, whatever that looks like, and then all that money goes directly to the bottom line. We can add the tenant insurance. We offer it. We don't sell it unless we're licensed. You can't sell insurance without licensing it, but we offer renters insurance, and we also can sell tenant protection plans, which affords them roughly the same coverage and the same liability coverage as an insurance program. And so all those folks that come into our facilities are asked if they either have a policy at home that covers while they're renting. And in some of our facilities and across the industry, it's mandated that you have to have some form of protection or insurance, or otherwise you can't rent at the facility. Many owners don't want to take on that liability of somebody being disgruntled and suing them for whatever reason, even frivolously. So we just don't take that on. We sell locks, boxes, and moving supplies because if our clients typically don't remember to bring those when they come in. And then we get into more of some of the advanced income streams that we can add on to a facility, like truck rentals through U-Haul or Penske or Budget, and we
Oh, okay.
receive a commission off of those.
Yeah.
If we have boats and RVs that we store, especially RVs, we can offer a propane service. We offer a concierge service to detail and have their vehicles ready for them when they arrive. We
Wow.
can also offer a pack and ship program for those folks that have an eBay business and they keep inventory on site. So the list goes on and on. There's lots of ancillary income streams that
Wow.
we can put in place to add on. But then
Mhm.
on the expense side, we can reduce payroll by adding technology, by adding a kiosk and a website, and that is mobile friendly, that allows folks to not only rent a unit from the website or a mobile phone, but also to be able to pay rent and access their facility that way as well, thus reducing our payroll and expenses. And then the
Yeah.
normal appealing of taxes and how we structure our facilities going into it, which gives us some advantages in reducing our expenses as well.
No, that's fantastic. So I think there's a couple of things that are pretty
Mhm.
important. I think is part of it is reducing expenses, but the other
Mhm.
thing that is, in my opinion, more important is about really understanding your customers' need,
Sure.
and then figure out a way to address them.
Mhm.
Doing the car detailing and all of that, and providing truck rentals and all of that. I think that's and also even the pack and ship that you mentioned
Mhm.
for people that have an eBay business. I mean, this
Absolutely.
is really about understanding your customers and what
Mhm.
they do, and how you can help them. That's phenomenal.
It
So
is, and that's we're a service based nice business. When people come into a facility, I mean, we're kind of in the trauma and transition business. When people come
Yeah.
into a storage facility, there's usually something going on in their lives. They're, their basement flooded and they have to put their stuff in storage while they fix it.
Yeah.
Death, divorce, estates being settled, a move, a job loss, which forces a move of some sort. And so, yeah, many times when people walk into our store, their hair's on fire. They got something going on. So it is
Yeah.
100%. You're right, Eric, all about serving our customers.
Yeah, yeah. So let's say some of our listeners are interested in that and they want to get started. What's the best way to get started if they want to do self-storage?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a loaded question, and I can answer that by way of saying it depends, obviously. So there's a number of ways, and we're talking commercial real estate, and although this is a lower price form of commercial real estate, you can get into a self-storage facility, smaller, 10, 15, 20 unit facility in some rural areas for $100,000, $200,000 and have a multi-unit piece of commercial real estate that allows you to leverage to be able to buy multiple units in one location and get all the benefits of a multi-unit commercial property. It's a little more difficult as the closer you move towards the metro areas and the secondary markets, and so you have to have a little bit more capital in order to do so. But one of the easier ways to get into it, to your question, is to partner with someone who has experience, who maybe have capital or both, where they have lending experience and maybe they're signing on the loan along with you. So coming alongside of someone is also a great way to get into the business. And we also have, we syndicate our projects. We bring in limited partners or private equity partners that come into a facility project with us that will contribute $50,000, $100,000 to a project, which may be a $5 million, $10 million, $15 million project. And so they don't have to come up with all of that capital if they were to do this on their own and take on the liability of a loan, manage a team, the development and everything else. And so it's a great way to get started and learn about the business and really earn while you learn the business, and then build that credibility and your resume when it comes time to go do your own. But now when it's time to go do your own, to get started, no different than multifamily and single family, you need to build your funnel and crank up your marketing machine and send direct mailers out to owners, make communications with and relationships with the brokers that are selling self-storage facilities in your market, and then surveying your market and going and pulling on doors and talking to the person behind the counter. It may be an employee or it may be the owner, and just getting an understanding of who's in the market and getting in front of them to see, if and when it's time for them to sell, that they call you, or at least you get a seat at the table.
Yeah, yeah. So do you prefer to build new facilities or you buy existing facilities and then kind of like do the value add? You do kind of both? How do you approach
We do a little
that?
bit of both. When we got started in the business, obviously the quickest way and the easiest way to get started in self-storage is to buy an existing facility. That is obviously the easier to get a loan because the banks can look at a historical occupancy and cash flows. But so we buy existing facilities and create value by way of adding the income streams, reducing expenses, as we just mentioned. We'd like to buy existing facilities that have land that is available to build on, that may have an additional half acre, 1 acre, 3 acres, in which we can build additional buildings and expand and create value that way. We will buy vacant grocery stores and industrial buildings and office buildings and convert them into self-storage as well. So we start with a solid shell and then we add self-storage to it. And we also build from the ground up. So we'll buy a piece of dirt, do our feasibility studies, buy a piece of dirt, and then build a facility on that and add the income stream as we go along. So we're involved in all facets of self-storage.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I was thinking, especially now, I think a lot of these retail spaces, some market, I mean, they're gonna be empty for a while, and then they're gonna be selling these commercial facilities. So that this could be a way to get in there and and buy them and convert them.
The retail world is really taking a hit in 2020, and it's not going to stop. We continue to see bankruptcies from large retailers and small. So these retail strip centers and the big anchor stores, the standalones, there's plenty of buildings out there that once they get down, they've been out there on the market for a while, and they realize that retail is not coming back, that we're going to be able to buy those up. And we're already doing that and converting them over. So that is one of our top strategies right now, Eric. So you're absolutely on top of it.
Yeah. So so what are some of the key markets that you think some of our listeners should be looking at if they're interested in maybe starting their own,
Mhm.
and then kind of like, I guess you kind of like what we do for single family rentals, you kind of go in there, figure out what's the best market, and
Mhm.
talk to brokers, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
go actually there and talk to
Mhm.
owners or people behind the desk and say, hey, what's going on, who's the owner,
Mhm. Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. So what are some of the markets that people should be looking at if they're interested in self-storage?
So we look at markets much the same as somebody looking at single family or apartments, multifamily would, and that is we like high growth markets, and we like to see that the rental rates in the market are already strong, so that we know if we're buying a facility where they haven't raised the rates for a while, that we've got a large delta, a large variance that we can build value, or
Hmm.
that the rental rates are high enough that we can afford to build. Because if nobody's raised rates in a rural area for a while, they're all competing to get to the bottom, then the
Yeah.
rates are so suppressed that that doesn't matter. You can get the land for free and put a building on it, and it won't pencil out. It won't make money.
Yeah.
So we do like those high growth markets. But remember, self storage, very inflation resistant, because when people buy more stuff, they need a place to store more stuff. So it works well during that economy. But also in a recession, when businesses are downsizing and people are downsizing, there's a huge demand for storage as well. And so that parlays into a market as well. We like high
Hmm.
growth. That means great opportunities, but also in a market which is changing. There has been a large manufacturer or a large wage, a company that supplied a lot of jobs that has now moved away, and
Yeah.
the wages are now being suppressed, and some of those jobs are going away. Well, that we're in the trauma and transition business. That also causes a demand for storage.
Hmm.
So all that to say, Eric, people need to start looking at their backyard. Look
Yeah.
within a 2-hour drive of your backyard. Continue to look for the best market in the country or the fastest growing, because the opportunity in storage, because of how it works and the nature of it, those opportunities, you can find those in your backyard.
Hmm. So the other thing is also like finding the owners and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I mean, on the single family rentals or apartment building, it's a little bit easier because I
Mhm.
mean it's clear. I mean, there's database, there's lists that you
Mhm.
can access, and it's pretty easy to get the owner and send them a letter, and you can automate that whole process. But how
Mhm.
do you do that? It sounds like it's more, you have to be more hands-on the in order to acquire your first self-storage
Mhm.
facility. Is that right?
Actually, I'd say it's the opposite of that.
Oh
We use
yeah.
the same list brokers in the same format that when we were buying our multifamily projects as we did with self storage. However, our industry actually has a couple extra set of databases that it's much easier to find the owners through the LLCs and by other
Oh
means and
yeah.
other ways that we found a dramatic difference in how much simpler it is to be able to find the owner and get a letter that lands on their desk, as it
Oh,
was
okay.
when we were sending it out for single family and certainly for multifamily.
And this database is accessible to everybody, or you have to pay for
You
the
have to pay
service?
for it. Yep,
Okay.
you pay for these services, but we have a couple extra companies that we utilize in the self storage arena, which are far more scrubbed and detailed and actually get to the owner's addresses,
Okay.
names and
Do you
addresses.
mind sharing one or two of one of these databases that we can look at?
Sure, Yardi Matrix is one of them, spelled
Okay.
YARDI. Yardi Matrix is one of them, and then also Radius is another one that we use for market research and also finding the folks that own these facilities.
Well, sounds good. So
Mhm.
part of what you're doing as well is, I mean, obviously you really like self-storage.
Mhm.
You put syndications together. So you've
Correct.
put but you do also like mentoring, coaching. You have like events and
Mhm.
courses and stuff like that. All of that is on your website. So
Correct.
tell us more about that whole education
Sure.
side of what you're
Mhm.
doing on self-storage.
Yeah, I never set out to grow an education company, and certainly never set out to be a guru, if you will. But along the way, when I got into self storage back in 2005, there wasn't a company like ours. There really wasn't anybody or people or groups where we could learn about the business, where somebody would walk you through how to find, evaluate, purchase, and manage a self storage facility. There were a few books at the time, and you could pay some consultants, and you can go to the trade shows and learn about doors and about how to paint facilities and build them, but not about really the investing side for an investor. And so we learned on our own. I paid mentors, I paid consultants to fill in the gaps and my blind spots in the beginning. But then I used to run the Indianapolis Landlord Association, which became the
Okay.
Central Indiana Real Estate Investor Association. And people began seeing what we were doing in self-storage and wanted to learn about it. So we started holding workshops, and then they got bigger. And then some of the agents, the national speakers, wanted me to go out and speak at different real estate groups across the country on how to do this. And then everybody in the arena said, okay, now you need to have a live event, and next step is a home study system, and we want mentoring and coaching. And so, really, I don't want to say we were drug into it, because I'm kind of an educator at heart anyways. I'm passionate about that. I love to do that. But before I knew it, I grew a 60-hour-a-week business on the education side, in addition to my 60-hour-a-week on the investment side of the business. And so we've successfully blended the two together now. And so our education side of the business, by way of our top level mentoring programs and our mastermind, that those are the people that I'm investing with. And so we're teaching them our ways and our means, especially on how to go out and find and evaluate facilities and development sites. And then if it makes sense to do so, we come alongside of them if they need additional resources from our balance sheet or our equity partners, or for us to be on the loan, or just assistance that the bank wants to see, to give them assurance before they make a loan to one of our students or one of our associates in our mastermind. So it's been a good partnership between the two.
Yeah. And I think also there's so many, it's a little bit, there's a lot of different opportunities, but there's also a lot of things like you mentioned earlier, for example, to reduce the staff and stuff like that, have basically your self-storage facility operate kind of like remotely, people being able to reserve their and rent their storage unit on the website, being able to access, do everything, the whole transaction on their own without any human intervention, pretty much. But the next question is going to be, okay, well, what system do I use? Where do I get it? And blah, 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 blah. How do I set that up? And the process associated with that. So, yeah, I think that having someone like yourself, kind of like that has done that for like, you have like 13,000 units, if I read correctly.
Correct.
So you've done it a few times. You know what system to implement, what system to get and which one not to get. And so I think that's pretty valuable. And I suspect that your group, your mastermind, and and your website and all of that can provide that information for the people that are looking for that.
Yeah. Well, one of my mentors along the way said, you're going to pay for education in real estate investing, no matter where you invest or how you invest. You're either the market is going to make you pay for it, or you pay for it up front. And I can say 1,000% from experience that is true in every single instance. And I continue. I have a massive education budget even now after 15 years in the business, and as you mentioned, 14,000 units and 2.4 million square feet in the industry. I'm still learning, and I have an education budget where I'm constantly teaching myself on how to get better at my craft and self-storage and as a business owner. And there's just no end to it. So 100%, there's a return on that.
Excellent, Buzz. Yeah, and it's a little bit like me as well. Like when I started in this business, I mean, I didn't even start to think about like doing Martel turnkey. I was thinking about just building a passive income portfolio for rentals. And then people were asking me, and I was like, then I said, well, yeah, you can invest with us, or you can buy this one, and then we got started, and that's when Martel turnkey started. Then we started getting more involved into podcasting and kind of like communicating and educating people about that, and wrote a book. And but that's kind of interesting how life evolves, and kind of how events and life kind of like direct you towards what you need to do to help others. So I really appreciate you putting this together, your mentorship, your mastermind and stuff like that. And they can get that at selfstorageinvesting.com. Is that the website that they need to go to get that? Okay.
Yep, right. Selfstorageinvesting.com, and we got a number of free resources there just to get to educate people on the front end to see if this is something you're interested in, and then also a few ways to make sure to avoid some of the gotchas and the pitfalls and the mistakes before you get in, and all that in an effort to just for us to give back. So yep, head on over to selfstorageinvesting.com. Lots of free resources, and then for those that want to take it to the next level, as you mentioned, we have a whole suite of resources to allow you to not only grow the business and scale it, but how to launch it and develop and do all things self-storage the way that we're doing it.
Excellent. Sounds very good. Scott, before we wrap up, anything you want to add that we haven't touched on?
Oh, I guess maybe some words of wisdom from somebody who's been around a long time, and that is just a key on what we had mentioned before. I think many people think that self-storage and real estate in general, in certain asset classes, is a very easy business, and certainly self-storage has done very well during the pandemic, as we're an essential business, stayed open. We have kiosks that run them, and there's a lot of trauma and transition, and so the industry's done well. Anybody that looks around the internet will see that, but so has real estate. We've had a big wind in our back right now. But don't forget to bring along good folks alongside of you, good mentors, do your education, because a good economy covers up a lot of blind spots as an investor. And there's going to be, there will be a lot of fallout, and some folks that'll fall by the wayside because their business was propped up by a really good economy and a good economy for real estate. So you want to make sure that you're protected and that you weather the storm. And so, that starts by protecting yourself with education. And, the biggest gotchas out there is that you don't know what you don't know. So with that, and I say that as an educator with no benefit and asking you for any money. It's just that this is the reason why we started this. This is our mission field, and that is to keep people from stepping into it so that they not only don't lose the battle, but you can also lose the war if your credit goes down and you don't have the ability to move forward afterwards. So get help where you need it, but then go out there and execute, because this industry is incredible.
Yep, exactly. Well, thank you, Scott. Again, Scott Meyers, expert in self-storage facilities, and his website is selfstorageinvesting.com. Can they reach out to you any other way, like Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah, if you type in Scott Meyers and Scott Meyers Self-Storage anywhere on the socials, you can't help but find me. We're out there everywhere.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Have a good day.
Eric. You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.